What's up, everybody? We're back again. It's episode 31 of the Dad Bod Golf Pod. You got Kyle, Nate, Ben, and probably the biggest guest we've ever had, Mr. Buddy Alexander. Buddy, how's it going, man?
Doing great. I'm not sure about the biggest, but probably the oldest.
Let me get
Definitely
so far.
Thanks, Nate.
Let me get. Hey, let's go through. This isn't any dude. We're gonna go through this resume, buddy, real quick. Okay, it may take me a minute, so everybody just get comfortable, hunker down, get comfortable. So we got collegiate two-time All-American at Georgia Southern, two-time national champion golf coach at the University of Florida. We have 8-time SEC champion coach. And
no, that's 10.
10. Okay. Well,
wow.
Hey, we got to get into Wiki. We can get into Wiki. We can edit that.
Two at LSU that they always forget.
Hey, we got to get in there and fix that. Hey,
That's a
we
flex.
can edit Wiki. So we'll get in there and we'll get that fixed.
Yeah, we'll do 11.
Yeah. 1986 US AM champion. And probably, I would say, correct me if I'm wrong, buddy, the most proudest thing that you have to be is you're the reigning AU club member champ and senior club champ all at the same time with 2 parking spots. That's iconic.
Yeah, I know.
Hey.
Well, one of them's for lease until I lose it. So anybody who wants to come up with a little jelly, they can park in my spot.
Hey, buddy, who did you beat in the member to get that parking spot?
I can't remember who it was.
Yeah, that's our very own Kyle Rush.
Couple of kids.
But Buddy broke my heart in a 3-hole slugfest playoff.
Did you make it all 3 holes, Kyle?
Yeah, we were there. We
They
were duking it out.
Final too.
We were duking it out. It was me and my
They had a chance to win on the second playoff hole.
Yeah, we did. We had a chance. I had a putt to win it, and I just nipped the edge. Nipped the edge. Had him swing.
Didn't have a Sweetrollz grip.
15 footer. It was close. You had a good putt.
That could have been the highlight of my golfing career right there. And
Now, Kyle, you've told us your side of this story. Does Buddy remember the side of the story?
What's
from
that?
His end of playing you in that 3-hole playoff.
Yeah, he just talked about the whole thing. Like,
Yeah, but I'm talking about sending you off the course. Just,
that's a different tournament.
Oh, it's a whole different tournament.
Yeah.
So you got multiple losses to him. I got you. I'm okay. I'm with you.
But he's talking about the shootout where I got to number 7 and my ball hadn't quite got off the tee, and you told me to get the heck out of here. We'll see you next year. I was like, hey, let's just make sure it doesn't like hit a tree and come back into play. So that was great. So, Buddy, man, thanks for taking the time to do this. I know you're getting ready to go play in a big tournament. So leaving tomorrow, right?
I am. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, going to play in the U.S. Senior Am. Where is that being held?
It's at the Country Club of Detroit.
Wow. Country Club of Detroit. Long flight. All right, cool. So the biggest reason we want to have you on, our schedules didn't quite line up. We wanted to get you on around the USAM, which was actually 2 weekends ago, and kind of talk about the format and things like that. James Piot from Michigan State took that title, and he's talked about how awesome it is, like getting calls from celebrities and things like that. And he's got some cool exemptions coming up that I'm going to let you kind of break down. But I kind of wanted you to just we're just average guys. So this is like I said, the Dad Bod Golf Pod. We're not super technical and know a whole lot about the formats of all these tournaments. So I kind of wanted you to, tell us how, I guess, that format, like how the stages and things like that, how it gets to where it gets to the match play that you see on TV, if you don't mind.
Well, I mean, interestingly enough, I am so old that I've actually played the U.S. Amateur at 3 different formats. In 1972, my first one, it was 72 holes of stroke play. And then in 73, it went to a straight up match where there were 300 and some odd people in there, and half, 50 or 60 guys got a bye. It was kind of stupid, really, in my opinion. Craig Stadler won at Inverness, and I think he, if you got a bye, you only had to win 7 matches. If you didn't, you had to win 8. And wisely, in 1979, they went to the current format, which was at that time 156. No, I guess it was 312 because they played 2 courses. But it starts with, first of all, you have to qualify sectionally to get in the tournament, which is typically forever and ever is 36 holes in one day. You can find sites now where, especially where it's really hot, where you play 18 on one day and 18 on the other. And, the odds aren't good. There's about 9,000 people that enter the golf tournament, and there's 312 that get in. And there's a handful that are exempt. There are probably about 50 exemptions now. Back in the day, there were no exemptions other than guys that made the Walker Cup team and former champions for about 5 years or something like that. But now they do go by world ranking and give, I think, about 50 exemptions. So they're still qualifying for 250 some odd spots around the country. Typically you show up and there's one spot for every 25 or 30 guys that are entered. So it's not easy.
Wow.
And then you go to the site, you play 2 different courses, and after 36 holes, they cut to 64 exactly. So if there's a tie for 57th with, 17 guys, they'll have a 17 guy playoff for the 7 spots that are available. And that can be kind of crazy because it usually goes into the next day because they don't have enough time. You're at 2 different sites. You got to get back to Oakmont in this case. They had, I don't remember exactly. I think there were 19 guys for not a lot of spots. I don't remember exactly.
Do they all play in one group, or is they split it up in anywhere?
No. You play. I have a good story about that one year, but no, they split them up into like 4s,
Gotcha.
3s and 4s depending on the number, and you play a hole and then you wait because you may be in or you may be out, and yeah, it's pretty grueling. And then, then they file you right into playing a match that same day. And if you're the last guy in at number 64, you'll play the number 1 guy, which is the medalist. And if you're 63, depending on when you get in, you play the guy that was number 2, and so on and so forth until 32 plays 33. And, typically there's the qualifying rounds are on a Saturday, Sunday, and then on Monday you play a match. They do the playoff and then the match, and then 2 rounds on Tuesday, 2 rounds on Wednesday. So it gets it gets to be kind of a. I mean, when I won, it was 2 rounds on Monday, 2 rounds on Tuesday. So you had to play, in a little shorter period of time, but it's still a grueling week if you get all the way to the semifinals or so.
You played was it at Shoal Creek when you played? Is that right? Or
that's correct. Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. So like I said, you won it in 1986. And one thing I don't think people just the average guy realize is, I guess, the gravity of winning the USAM and what the kind of rewards and things like that do you get for that? What are some of the exemptions? Tell us some of the exemptions that you get for that, you get for winning a USAM. They could be could catapult you or give you the opportunity to play for some pretty big prizes.
Well, you're not really playing for prizes because you have to remain an amateur to go to these events. But, the first one is if you get to the finals, you get to play in the Masters. So that's pretty special. Also, if you get to the finals, you get to play in the US Open. I think it used to be that way. Could just be that the winner gets to play in the US Open. I'm not sure. You also get to play in the British Open. And you got a real good chance to play on the Walker Cup team.
Yeah.
And you pretty much can get into most all of the invitationals on tour, like the Bay Hill Invitation, the Arnold Palmer Bay Hill Invitational, the Memorial, Jack's Tournament, Colonial. Most of the invitationals that are on tour will extend an invitation to the U.S. Amateur Champion. So I didn't get a chance to take advantage of that much because I was working, and it just didn't fit into the schedule during the college season. I was coaching at LSU at that time, but most of the younger guys that are winning these days, they usually play in one or two of the invitationals as well.
That's awesome.
So you mentioned that you had like a good story about the I guess you were in a grueling playoff, and I think if I know this correctly, you actually have played some of your players in USAM matches. So just give us your USAM stories. I mean, your best of the best, the stuff that sticks out to you.
Well, the year I was defending champion, I was in a playoff at Jupiter Hills for 24 guys for 11 spots, I think it was.
Wow.
And the first hole at Jupiter Hills was the easiest hole in the golf course. It was kind of a downhill par 5, and you could get there with a driver and a 3-iron. And I missed the green just to the right. I hit a really good chip that ran about 8 feet by, and I just hit the perfect putt that just creased the top lip and came out. And actually, I think there were 12 spots. And so there were 11 birdies, and this was right after this was on the Sunday. This was right after the round that day. And now it's dark. So a couple guys made a bogey, and there were 12 guys that came back the next day for one spot. And of course, if I win that spot, I'm 64. I'm going to play the defending champion. I'm going to play the medalist. And sorry, we got dogs.
Fine.
So I go to bed, and I start visualizing the second hole at Jupiter Hills, which is probably after the easy par 5. It's probably just as hard as the par 5. It's the hardest par 4 on the course. And I visualized, 100 times the perfect drive. It was about a 4-iron shot, perfect 4-iron, flags in the front right corner, little fade with a 4-iron, 10 feet left of the hole, and boom, I'm going to make it. I'm going to make a 3, and I'm going to win. No, there's no question in my mind. This is 100 times over and over and over. And I did exactly that. I hit a perfect drive, cut a 4-iron in there about 10 feet left of the hole, bip, knocked it in. I'm in the first foursome. I go over, cocky as hell, and I plop down in a cart, and I'm reading the newspaper. I'm just in. Ain't nobody making a birdie on this hole. And in the last group, a guy hits it to the right of the right bunker in Bermuda grass. It's like, this deep. He hits this crazy flop shot out, goes in the hole, and I walked up to the third tee, and I said, I didn't visualize this hole last night. Ooh. And proceeded to make a bogey, and 88 out the gate.
Oh,
wow.
That's how.
Really thought that story was going to end with a happy ending.
No happy ending. I did play Chris DeMarco in the 1988 U.S. Amateur. He was on my team at Florida. I had gone to Florida at that time. And Chris called me about a week before the tournament and said, Coach, it was played at the Homestead, which is in Virginia, and it's kind of out in the middle of nowhere. It's a fabulous resort. And he goes, Coach, I didn't get a room in time. I don't have a place to stay. And I mean, there's nowhere to stay out there other than this grand hotel. He goes, is there any way I can stay with you? And I go like, yeah, we'll get a room with 2 beds. That's fine. So we play, and both play good in the stroke play. I think we qualified about 13th or something. And the pairings came out, and we're we're not playing each other in the first round, but if we win, we're going to play each other in the second round.
Oh my gosh, and your roommate.
Yikes.
And you're rooming. This
Yeah.
is
Well, but half the field is more than half the field is now gone.
True.
And he goes, I probably got to get my own room, shouldn't I? Go like, yeah, I think that'd be a good idea.
Yeah.
So in the meantime, I'm listening to this this cassette on with my Walkman all the time, and it's a positive thinking, motivational type thing. And my Walkman had broken during the week, so I was using Chris's Walkman. We all had Walkmans back then, you know, we didn't have phones. And he said, by the way, Coach, you know, I'm going to have to take my Walkman with me.
Oh.
And I said, well, that's okay, Chris. You're welcome to take your Walkman with you, but you are currently playing with a set of my irons, and if you take your Walkman, I'm going to have my irons.
Oh,
no. You can have the Walkman, man. You can have the Walkman. So, anyway, you know, he's obviously had a great career and is a terrific player, but I think it just came down to the fact that he was a little more nervous and wanted to win a little bit too badly, and he got off to a bad start, and then I got up on him and I won that match. But I also played another one of my players, not in the U.S. Amateur. I played Robert Floyd, and we played in the quarterfinals of the North-South Amateur, and he birdied the first 4 holes. And I walk into the fifth tee. I said, Robert, you know, seriously, you know, you never birdied the first 4 holes for me. Why do you have to birdie the first 4 holes against me? And he ended up winning that match. So I'm 1-1 with former players in match play competition.
what's the vibe like on the course with your players at the time? I mean, I know that some of this is tongue in cheek, and you guys are ribbing each other about the Walkman, about the irons, about that, and you know, of course, saying I need to get my own room. But like, I mean, this is serious. This is stuff on the line. So
no, nobody wants to lose that deal. No, I mean, that is worse. That you can't have a worse draw because you're never going to hear the end of it. Even if the other guy's a humble enough guy not to mention it, you're just not going to happen. And in DeMarco's case, he's the top 5 most competitive guys I've ever had play for me. So I knew that I just had to win that match somehow. And the vibe was not a lot of conversation, to be honest. Now, Floyd had a little different personality. So, you know, there was a little ribbon going on, obviously, after he got off that good start and was 4 up. But I got it a little closer, and he wasn't having quite as much fun as he was early on. But he ended up winning, I think, 3-2.
Nice. So, buddy, I got a question. So you went to right out of college, like you got the head coach job at Georgia State fairly early, like within a couple of years of graduating. What was the reason? Like, why didn't you want to like see how you could do on tour? Like, what was the thought process there? Because obviously you were a hell of a player. How did that whole transition from playing to coaching so quickly, like how did that come about?
Well, first of all, it was Georgia Southern, not Georgia State.
Georgia Southern, that's right.
And secondly, I graduated in 75, and I played pretty well that summer, and I always wanted to make the Walker Cup team. So I decided that I would just wait a couple of years and mature a little bit, work on my game. So I went to Hilton Head and worked as an outside attendant for a year. It was awesome. You know, we had a terrible house that was right on the ocean. I mean, when I say terrible, it was not a really nice place, but it was on the ocean. And, 4 guys just got a little money in your pocket for the first time, making a little money as an outside attendant, making a little money gambling. Everybody on the island thought they could play. And, to be honest, most of them were assistant pros that weren't that good. It was kind of like candy from a baby. And anyway, it was just a fun year or 9 months. So that summer I quit the job at Hilton Head, and I was working on my game, and we had some success at Georgia Southern. We were the only team that beat Wake Forest in 1974. They won every tournament they played except for one. In 75, they won every tournament that they played except for two, and we beat them once, and Florida beat them once at the Georgia Southern event, the Chris Schinkel. And our coach got the job at Wake Forest. Wow. And he and I were close, and I had told him that if I didn't play professionally, that I would probably like to be a college golf coach someday. I knew I didn't want to be a club pro, so I didn't want to be the club pro guy anyway. They made me the interim coach for a year, and I was a graduate assistant. And I liked what I was doing, and I was working on my master's, and it was taking a while. So I said, I'll do it again, but you're gonna have to pay me some real money as opposed to just a graduate assistantship. And they agreed. So I stayed for a couple years, and then I turned pro. So I was still playing a lot of amateur golf in the summertime. Coaching was a little different back then. It wasn't nearly as big a job as it is today.
Gotcha. So like I said, you moved from Georgia Southern to LSU to Florida, and that's where you went on. Well, you obviously won 2 SEC championships at LSU, which we're going to update on your wiki as soon as we get finished with this.
Okay.
And you went on your run at Florida, like you've coached a lot of guys that are on tour still on tour today. A lot of guys that played on tour. Who are some guys that you still kind of stay in contact with, or you still have relationships with? I thought it was kind of cool 2 years ago when they had that first PGA IQ local IQ tour event. You were one of the starters, and like all the guys knew who you were. I was like, that's so awesome. They're like, hey coach, like everybody knew who you were. It's just so cool. Like, so you have a lot of these relationships with these guys. Who's some of the guys you still kind of, still chit chat with? You talk to them while they're playing, this, that, and the other.
Well, typically the guys that want to talk to you after they leave are guys that play professionally, and in many cases, those that have had some success. Billy Horschel called me Sunday night after Liberty National.
Yeah.
He always calls me when he has a 3 or 4 hour drive. He was driving from New York to Baltimore. And anytime, he doesn't drive very often, but anytime he's got to drive, he doesn't want to be by himself. So he calls everybody that he knows that'll talk to him for half an hour at a time. And Billy and I are very close, still very close to Matt Every, but it goes, I'm close to Jody Mudd, who played for me at Georgia Southern and won the TPC and the Tour Championship in 1990. One of my best friends in the world is Mike Donald, who played the tour for 15 plus years. Lost in a playoff to Hale Irwin in 1990 at the U.S. Open. I'm good friends with Ken Krieger, who played with me and for me at Georgia Southern, who's been a club pro in Country Club of Cheyenne in Wyoming. There's a lot of guys I talk to that you've never heard of.
Right.
But as far as the tour guys, I still talk to Jody a little bit. Mike monthly at least. Horschel monthly. Every time he thinks I'm not mad at him for doing something crazy, I'll talk to him.
What about Mike Cooney? I kid you not. I met him on Sunday down in Fernandina Beach. I helped him pull some carts back in the barn, and he told me to tell you hello. He said you were his coach at Georgia Southern. So
yeah, he's absolutely one of the nicest human beings on the planet. He's a great guy. He was a pro at Golden Ocala in Ocala when probably for 10 years while I was coaching at at Florida. So yeah, I used to talk to Mike quite often, and I love me some Mike Cooney. He's special.
I want to ask you to tell one more story before Ben goes to the Masters. So I want you to tell. I've heard like rumors of this story, but I want you to tell when Will Claxton hits the hole in one in the SEC championship right in front of you. I got to hear that. I want to know. I want to hear it from your eyes. Like, set it up, tell that story, because I think it's just absolutely hilarious.
Well, he remembers it better than I. But I think it was the last day of the tournament, and we're coming down the stretch with Auburn and Georgia, and I mean it's nip and tuck. I mean it's all three teams are within a shot of each other, and he's not in the last group for Auburn, but it's probably the second or last group, and he's playing with Matt Every. And the 17th hole's a par 3. It's got a bunker that kind of curls around the front right corner, and the flag's in the back right, and so there's 25 yards from the bunker's edge to the hole. It's easier to hit it to the right of the hole in the bunker than short, because they're 25 yards short. And he dead sculls it, and it carries the bunker by about a yard, and it runs up there and it goes in the hole for a hole one. And so, at this point, every shot is, immensely valuable. And, I can see this going away, that Auburn's going to win with that kind of luck. And I turned around to Every, and I went like, that is the luckiest shot I have ever seen go into the hole. And I probably said it loudly enough for Claxton to hear it.
Oh, he heard it.
Oh yeah, he heard it. Oh no. And so when I moved to Auburn, it was funny because somebody told me that Will Claxton doesn't really like you. And
really,
you guys mentioned earlier, like for the local IQ, that most kids that you play against along the way, I mean, it's not like you're scheming against them in football and basketball or something. It's a gentleman's game, and most kids that played at other schools I got along with great, and I didn't have a problem with Will. I didn't even remember the story, but anyway, when I moved here and we started practicing, Nick Kleiner was kind enough to let me use the facilities there to practice and work on my game. I was out there all the time with Will. And, gradually we started to talk and chit chat, and we'd go down and we'd practice together, and we'd share some ideas and things. And then eventually he told me that story, and he told me that he really didn't like me, but now he lives right up the street and we're really good friends.
Well, he says that the way you described the shot was a little bit different. I think he said that
it was probably more colorful.
He said he heard. He said he heard Buddy say that was the ugliest effing shot I've ever seen.
Like I said,
sound like Buddy.
I'd go with his version because he remembers it better than I do.
Right.
But ugly or worst, what's the difference?
Not. There is.
You win in a hole. It was lucky as hell. That's all I can tell you. But
did Auburn win that tournament?
You'll have to ask.
Probably that was during their run. Will and those guys had some pretty good runs, so
yeah,
they did.
Yes, they won that year.
You talk about Will not liking you. I was told to ask you this about Doug Barron. Apparently gave you the finger while smoking a cigarette at LSU. Is that right?
Yeah, but
you want to walk us through that story?
Yeah, well, but Doug Barron, I love Doug Barron, and I think Doug Barron loves me. I mean, I sent him a congratulatory note, a text after he won 2 weeks ago, and he sent me a picture of he and DeMarco having a couple beers. So no, I like Doug. I've seen Doug a lot in the last 10 or 15 years probably, and so I'm a lame duck coach at LSU. I'm in September of '87. I agreed to go to work for IMG in Cleveland, the sports management company, and they didn't want to take me out at that late date, so they agreed that I would coach in the fall until the last tournament. Doug Barron's a freshman, and he's a good player. And Toms was on that team. Greg Lesher played the tour. Frederick Lingen was a Swedish guy that played the European tour for 15 years. So Doug was he moved right in and he was playing well. And I love Doug, but Doug was about semi crazy. Okay. And, so my office was in the Pete Maravich Center window office right next to Dale Brown's. And I don't remember what he did, but I said, you need to come by the office and wear your tennis shoes because you're going to have to run. And it was about a quarter of a mile around the Pete Maravich Center. So he ran around it a couple of times and you know, starts to go like, hey, you know, like I've had enough. And I'm just going like, you know, keep going. So then the next time he comes by, he's walking and smoking a cigarette. And I just go like this and he flipped me off. So yeah, that's the way that story goes. And, you know, partially it was because I was a lame duck and partially because, you know, I think you have to coach with a sense of humor, and he was being funny and he knew that I could take it. You know, he knew that I wasn't going to get mad at that. And I didn't. I mean, I laughed. What else are you going to do? I mean,
That's
you know,
hilarious.
Smoking a cigarette, walking when you're supposed to be running, you know,
Ripping a dart while you're supposed to be walking.
Absolutely. No, I love Doug. And let me tell you, I am tickled to death that, you know, he's found some pretty good success on that senior tour. I mean, well-deserved. He got kind of a funny deal on tour a long time ago, but, you know, they had some performance enhancing drugs that he was suspended for, but he had been prescribed them, and this was in the first year of it, and nobody knew what was going on. So yeah, good for Doug, and yeah, good friend.
That's awesome.
I guess now we got to transition to the Masters, Kyle. Unless you got any other some old players that maybe we can draw some stuff out of.
No, I want to hear the Masters.
Yeah, we've already gotten one particular Masters take from another previous pro that didn't necessarily go over well.
Yeah, Boo Weekly was not a fan of Augusta National.
He deemed it the worst course he's ever played, which is kind of odd considering that he's played some of the courses that Kyle and I have played in South Alabama. I can tell you that some of the courses that Kyle and I have played are not even the parking lot at Augusta National. So I found that very interesting that he called it that. Augusta
National is the most perfectly conditioned golf course I've ever seen. And I don't even have any idea which would be number two. I played in an Open and a U.S. Amateur at Oakmont. I think the world of Oakmont, I think for a championship course, it doesn't get a lot better than that. Cypress Point's an incredible place. And Pine Valley's, you know, just all by itself. So, but Augusta National's in the same class with those guys. So I don't know what Bo was looking at, but it's a pretty special place for me. And I'm sorry that he didn't have a good experience.
He didn't like the toying with the, like he said you're playing a couple of practice rounds and all of a sudden they're sucking the water out of the greens and they can get it as dry and fast as they want. And that's not the conditions you were pretty much used to the first couple of days that you were out there. And they loved his argument was what he told us. They like to come out on top. They like to be the winner in it. And, but he did talk about, you know, it being nice, but I guess that's what Kyle and I wanted to get at too. I mean, when you show it, here you are, you get the invite as an AM and you get there. I mean, walk us through the feeling of Augusta National. And
did you stay in the crow's nest?
Not during the tournament, but I went and played some practice round. You can, and when you get invited, you can go there and play whenever you want, provided it's not during the member guest or something that they've got going on. And
wow, I
went with Billy Andre one time. We were on the World Cup team together, and we went and stayed in the crow's nest and a couple other times. But when, you know, for the tournament, you have family and stuff, and there are a lot of distractions. If you know, to be honest with you, if those guys were smart, they'd stay in the crow's nest all week. They'd get their family a house and just maybe go over and eat dinner with them. But when they want to get away and be by themselves, you know, there's some great stories about guys sneaking down into the kitchen at night and going through there and getting what they wanted as far as ice cream or beer or whatever. But I don't know about the tricking up. You know, it's like every year that I've ever, you know, another perk that I didn't talk about is if you win the U.S. Amateur and you stay amateur, you get invited back to Augusta National every year as what they call an honorary invitee. And so, and you can play for years until about 3 or 4 years ago, you could play in the par 3 tournament, and you could play in the practice rounds, and you could go out and hit balls. And I mean, you were basically a participant that didn't start on Thursday. And that was it still is a special perk. I still go back every year, and I can go on the range. I can't hit balls anymore. And I'm fine with it. I mean, I got to play in the par 3 tournament 30 years. I quit playing the big course, 20 years ago, but when they lengthened it, when they tiger proofed it, it was too long, and I felt like I was getting in the way. I wasn't as good a player as I was in the early 90s or the 90s. But that's a pretty special perk. But when you get there on Monday, it's like, this is a very common thought among the players is, man, they're pretty fast for Monday. They know they're going to get faster, but it's still like, man, they're fast now. I mean,
right.
I can't imagine what they're going to be like Thursday. So it's coming. The U.S. Open, they do the same thing. I mean, they try to get it closer to where they're going to be, but yeah, they're going to get firmer and faster as the week goes on. And I don't really consider it tricked up. I just think that you ought to know that's coming.
Sure.
So anyway, that's my admiration for the Masters and Augusta National are just amazing. I mean, it's just such a
even as a fan, I mean, that's the tournament that you take off work to watch on Thursday and Friday. Like it's gore. You watch the whole live from the Masters starting on Monday night, and that's your primetime television. Doesn't matter what else is on television. You're watching live from the Masters to see former players tell stories. I was going to ask you though, you always hear people tell the stories about Augusta. Yeah. Walk us through 12 and the wind change and how you see players falter. I mean, like when Tiger won his last one, I mean, you got the 2 guys with him putting the ball in the water, and you're sitting there going, because you've heard other players say, take a 7 or an 8, aim at the bunker. You come up short, you're in the bunker. You go long, you're still fine. You push it or pull it, you're still fine. But I guess that's just easier said than done when you're out on the course.
Yeah, it's an awesome little hole. There's a tongue in the middle of the bunker, and you just aim at the tongue, and you just have to be disciplined enough to stay right there and not deviate from that. When the flag is to the left, if you aim at the hole and pulls go farther for right-handed players. So if you pull it, it can go over the green and get in that junk back there. And then, you're screwed just as badly as you are when you hit it in the water when the flag's to the right. So I think the amazing thing when you play there is when you get back there, no spectators are allowed back there. It's just amazing how narrow that green is. That's what makes it so difficult. Is it's just, it's at an angle. So it's a harder hole for right-handed players than left-handed players, because if a right-handed player comes out of it, it's going to go weak to the right and go in the creek. And if he pulls it, it's going to go long left. Whereas a left-handed player like Mickelson or whatever, and the lefties have a lot of success there, Bubba, Mickelson, Weir. When they pull it, if they're aiming at the tongue and they pull it, it still is usually solid and goes far enough to maybe be really good. And if they come out of it, it's going to be short. And the front bunker is not the worst place to be. The back bunker can be kind of nasty, especially if it plugs. So, you just have to imagine that you're standing on the tee and you look at the flag stick, and the flag's blowing right at you. And it's 155 or 60 yards. And, if you get it up in the air with a short iron and you flutter it and the wind's against you, it's not going to carry the bunker if you're smart enough to keep it at the tongue. And if you push it a little bit or come out of it at all, it's going to go in the creek. But then when you're standing there getting ready to make a decision, you look over at the flagstick on 11, and it's blowing straight the other direction. So the wind just gets down in that little corner of the course and swirls like crazy. And it's a really tough club to pull. I never had any problem with it. Of course, I played in 2 Masters, but I only I only played 4 rounds, and I think I made 4 threes, and I aimed at the tongue every time, and I just tried to control my trajectory. But I wasn't playing on Sunday when the heat's on.
Right.
And, might have been a little bit easier for me, but nonetheless, it's a very difficult club to pull. And like I said, you can get to the tee, and you can have the opposite happen. You can look at the flag and it can be blown with you. And you look over to 11 and the flag's blowing against you. And then by the time you pick your club out, they're both going the other direction. I mean, it's just crazy. It's just it's a little vacuum down there that is inexplicable. And it's a tough club to pull, especially for a right-hander.
That's awesome. We heard that you may have a Jack Nicklaus story from the Masters that's that ought to be that's pretty tasty.
Well, the other perk is that when you win the amateur, I keep coming up with these perks. They're pretty sweet. When you win the amateur, when you go to the Masters, it used to be that the amateur champ would play with the defending champ.
That's right.
So I won the 86 amateur and Nicklaus won the 86 Masters, and you played in a twosome. And so it's just Jack and I. And,
Wow.
You know, you're pretty nervous, needless to say.
Yeah.
I was fortunate to play in the New Orleans Open. They gave me a sponsor exemption. I was at LSU again, and I had I made the cut in New Orleans, so I got to play in a pro tournament. So I was feeling pretty good about my game. But it's the Masters, and you're playing with it's the greatest tournament that's ever played, and it's playing with the greatest player that's ever played.
Right.
And I got to the first tee, and I went, I'm just going to focus on me. I'm not even going to watch him play. So on the tee, Jack Nicklaus, 6-time Masters champion, so on and so forth. And he gets up there, and I just turn around. I'm just piddling around, playing like I'm getting something out of my bag or something. And as soon as he hits, everybody kind of goes like, woo, woo, yeah, yeah. Ooh, and then like silence, complete silence. So I know he's hit a bad shot. And so I get up there, and I'm trying to get my hand to stay steady enough to tee the ball up. And somehow, by the grace of God, I just ripped it as good as I got right down the middle of the fairway. So we take off, and the caddies are about 15 yards ahead, and there's a big dip, and then you start climbing the hill, and you can see these people start to congregate way over in the left woods, almost into the 9th fairway. And we're just chit-chatting. And I knew Jack. I recruited Gary, his son, to come to LSU. My dad and he were friendly. They knew each other. So he says, this is my 27th Masters, and that is by far the worst tee shot I've ever hit off of this tee. And I just couldn't help it. I just looked over at him, and I put my hand on his shoulder, and I said, Jack, listen, I know I can be a little intimidating to play with, but I think you'll be okay in a couple of holes.
The biggest flex of all time.
That is so great.
Oh no, but he loved it, and I know.
I'm sure.
I knew he wasn't going to think I was a jerk. I mean, he laughed. I mean, what else?
Yeah.
What else are you going to do?
That's awesome.
Did you kind of did that help? Just like, okay, I'm calling.
Yeah, I mean, I got off to a good start. I parred 1, he bogeyed it. I birdied 2, he birdied it. I 3-putted 3. It was a year that 1 under par won. That was when Mize chipped
Wow.
in. And there's only been one total higher than that year since 86 or 87. And that was when Zach Johnson shot 2 over to win. And it was hot. We got on the 11th green. It was hot. It was windy. We played pretty late. We got on the 11th green, and he's looking at the green. He goes like, buddy, I've never seen him turn purple before. I've seen him turn brown, but I've never seen him turn purple. and 69 was like low round of the day. So it was a tough day to play, but he did everything imaginable to help me feel comfortable. I mean, he is as great a gentleman as there could be. And it was an honor to play with him.
That's awesome.
Tell you about Augusta, and I've talked to Kyle about this before when I've had a chance to go to rounds and watch it. That TV doesn't do justice is number one, the undulation in the greens and how small those greens are. That's way different than it looks on television. After watching it for, I don't know, 20 or 30 something years before I finally ever made the trip over there, I just was in shock as soon as we walked in, and I was like, these things are a lot smaller than television makes them out to be.
Yeah, and they got big hills, and that
Yes, the elevation is crazy.
That makes them even. I mean, the greens have big hills, and yes, the elevation change on the golf course is amazing. It's a very difficult course to walk. I mean, you almost invariably on Monday and Tuesday, you got shin splints for a couple of days because you just, number 8 straight uphill, 18 straight uphill, 6 is straight downhill. I mean, it's a very hilly golf course, and you're right. Television does not do justice to the elevation changes within the course from tee to green. And then when you get on the golf course and you get on the greens, you realize that they're sectioned off. Some of them are fairly large, like 14, but I mean, the first half they don't even use for a whole location. Same with 5. They got significant big movement up. But yeah, you got to be on the right side or the right quadrant or section of the greens, and that makes them smaller than they really are. I mean, there's a saying that if you could put the hole locations wherever you wanted and then put a ball on every green, the best player in the world couldn't break 90, which is even 3 putts. I don't know that would necessarily be true, but it might be pretty close to it. Is if you get on the wrong side, I mean, there's just no way to get the ball to end up next to the hole.
It's incredible. So you said you played in the par 3 contest for 30 years. Is that right? Or 20 years? How many times did you
well, they stopped letting us play 3 years ago. So that would have been 17, maybe was the last time I played. So I started playing in 87. So that's 13, 17, that's 30.
Did you have any hole-in-ones in the par 3 contest?
Yeah, of course.
I knew you had.
Of course.
Don't you get the crystals every time you hit a hole-in-one?
Yeah, I got a little crystal from Augusta National. I was playing.
I pulled a little crystal from Augusta National.
I was playing with Horschel and Matt Every. Probably 2010 maybe, 12, somewhere in there. And the second hole is a little 70-yard kind of downhill little pitch shot, and I used a sand wedge because I thought a 60 would come back too much, and just kind of nipped a little sand wedge in there. It took a little hop and started trickling back down the hill, went right in. Tyson, my son, was caddying for me, so it was pretty special. And you also get crystal for an eagle in the tournament, which I never did. But you also get crystal for closest to the hole in the par 3 tournament. And one year on the 7th hole, I got closest to the hole. And so I got 2 pieces of Augusta National crystal.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, buddy, but the last time I was at your house, all the towels in your guest bathrooms are also Augusta National towels. Is that correct?
They're little hand towels.
Yeah. Okay. So you wash your hands at Buddy's house and you got an Augusta National towel to wipe your hands off with.
Yeah.
I don't see an issue with that. I think that's fine.
Yeah, they're little golf type hand towels that are they're not really like hand towels that you'd normally see in a bathroom. They're the hand towels that you can buy in the pro shop that you would put on your golf bag. And so
that's what he's got in his bathroom.
Golf bag, they hang on a little hook in the half bath that everybody uses when they're over visiting.
Nice.
Awesome. Well, buddy, man, this has been so fun. I hope we can do this more since we're kind of friends. We get to play together every now and then. I'm not totally salty for you stealing my parking spot.
He is
breaking my heart. But I kind of feel like I should be able to park in it since you have 2 of them and I came in second, but that's neither here nor there.
Well, I've told the pro, I said, why don't you park in one of my spots? Cause it's kind of embarrassing to sit up. And by the way, the member's coming up. So you got a chance for revenge.
Redemption. Can't wait.
Yeah,
Yeah,
me and between the two of us, buddy, I mean, we pretty much got the whole parking lot locked up. I got a spot, you got two. So
That's right. I got one last weekend at Sagahatchee. I won the senior club championship out there. So
nice.
I got parking spots.
You start. I got parking spots. Gotta
Parking
start
spots in
charging.
Crystal, baby. Are you kidding me?
That's awesome. That's awesome. So you're about to head out tomorrow. What time are you leaving tomorrow?
You want me to call you when I get up?
Yeah, it'd be fine.
Yeah.
You call me, I'll be up. I promise.
Yeah.
Well, then you call me and wake me up. 'Cause it's gonna be really early.
Hey, buddy, let's visualize all 18 holes tomorrow. Okay. Tonight. Let's visualize all 18.
Okay, sounds good. Smart advice.
That's awesome. Well, good luck this weekend. We'll keep everybody posted on how you play, and hope we wish you the best of luck and get safe home. Because get safe. I think I won $15 off of you. I'm feeling good and ready to play again. So we're ready to roll again soon.
I don't remember that $15. Who was my partner? He must have been awful.
He was. I think he was. I think you had a bad partner that day.
Sounds good. Hope to play with you soon.
Absolutely. Take it easy, man. Thanks.
Thanks,
Okay.
See you, buddy.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.